In the spring of 1610, Reverend Jesse Fléché was making preparations for an ocean crossing which, according to the wisdom of the day, would be a dark and perilous voyage, attempted by only a handful of people before him. He would embark upon a journey into a vast unknown across the tempestuous Atlantic to America, with dangers every step of the way. Fléché would act as a special envoy of the Vatican. His mission was both religious and political, to save souls, but also to form friendly alliances with the native inhabitants of New France. His voyage would be the first diplomatic journey to North America. The sacraments he would administer would be among the first in all of the vast continent, and the seeds of peace and friendship he would sow would set the stage for some of the most extraordinary events in all of the history of European global colonial exploits. Peter Joe Augustine and Catherine Sorby have come today to Langres in France in tribute to Fléché and his fateful voyage. They have come to sing ancient songs, Gregorian chants, songs which were handed down to them in their own native language from generation to generation of their ancestors. Songs which Fléché would have brought with him from France, from this very cathedral in Langres so many years ago. They are also singing in tribute to the long friendship their people, the Mi'kmaq, have shared with French-speaking people over the centuries, a relationship which began with Fléché's voyage and his encounter with a most singular character.
In nomine Patris et Filius et Spiritus Sancto, oremus. Dieu puissant et créateur, envoie ton Esprit Saint
Mi'kmaq Grand Chief Membertou, political leader, nobleman, warrior, and shaman of great power, who at the age of 101 became the first native inhabitant of North America to accept Christianity.
Viens purifier son cœur et béni sois-tu pour sa conversion.
Well, I think Membertou had a vision. And that his vision was that progress is here. Progress is here. These people are here and they're not going to leave. And the best way that we can live with these people is to try to pray with them, or pray the way that they do, without abandoning your own Mi'kmaq spiritual philosophy. He had proven his leadership. People believed in him too, and they felt that because Grand Chief Membertou became a Christian, then we should too, because they had great respect for him.
Henri Membertou, te baptismo in nominis Patris et Filius et Spiritus Sancto.
Mi'kmaq acceptance of Christianity, however, did not mean a rejection of Mi'kmaq spiritual beliefs. And in a brilliant move, Fléché and Membertou formalized a treaty between the Vatican and the Mi'kmaq, a treaty which respected Mi'kmaq traditions and sealed the practice of Mi'kmaq rituals within the Catholic Mass, clearing the way for the shared celebration of the Mi'kmaq's pristine natural world.
Oremus, Dieu éternel, tu nous donnes la grâce de connaître ton Fils Jésus-Christ, qui vient nous retrouver pour nous secourir par le sacrement du baptême.
I can only think of tranquility
You know, I can only think of tranquility and peacefulness, such enjoyment of what's around you. You know, I can picture myself walking along beaches, you know, picking shells or fishing, drying fish, and I can't ever imagine the tranquility that must have roamed this place. I've ever seen it again. I can picture being on a canoe and still waters. In the clean water, you can see yourself in the water. You listen to the brooks, waterfalls. There isn't too many of them left. I'm sure there was hard times, you know.
The Creator that made me, He made everyone. He made the plant life, He made the wind, He made the waters, He made the stars, moon. He also made thunder, the thunder in the sky. There is no better universe than what Earth is. It can't be no better because it was made by Niskum, and he made no mistakes. He made no mistakes of what he has done. When this great universe was built, everything was in place, but there had to be keepers of this great land, and so Niskum, he reached down and he got earth, and he dropped it, and he made man, and he reached down and he got earth again, and he made woman, his companion. So we were the protectors of life. We protected this land, this great universe, and we kept it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We need every bit. We need every bit of what's here. They had respect for the seasons. They had respect for the snow. They had respect for the thunder. We respected the dark nights. Today our nights are not dark. The spirits I have is from plant life. The spirits I have is from the thunder in the sky. And the spirits I have is from the rainbow. And Grandfather Eagle. And all animals is my power animal. Birds are my power animal. The sun, the moon, the wind, it's all my power. Even the trees, they have a spirit. My feet, as I tramp on the earth with my moccasins, each one of those pebbles touches nerves on my feet. When I walk through the woods, I have hundreds and thousands of readings from the trees.
You see animals. You can see animals of all kinds, no matter where you go. They're not afraid of you. They don't really run. They know you don't take them or you don't touch them till you need them. You could see a hunt. I can picture way back on a hunt. Not everybody scurrying everywhere, and just everybody being happy, like the women going and taking the deer or caribou or moose after it's down. The women cleaning it and sharing and having a feast, Thanksgiving, and there was just so many different things. Makes you just want to relax and close your eyes, feel light inside, you know.
Can you hear your language?
Huh?
Can you hear your language?
No dai wada wo gudi jikarwa. Eikal monastum one. I can hear, you know, I can hear them talking. There's some things I don't know what they're saying. Unfortunately. Kwe. Padaramu, you know, words that are long lost. We've lost a lot of the language.
Education of what you want? Gypsy Day. Geluk. Which I am out of someone. Pure to age.
Oh, we know, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do it. They knew in advance, so there was a prophet in every nation. There's a prophet. I really believe that. You know, the foreseers of futures. They predicted what's happening today in those days. They see a long, hard road, and a lot of them aren't really believing it. They can't believe what's coming. They don't think humans are like that. They don't think anybody can be like that. They have such good thoughts about creation. I can only feel their pain. The pain of what's coming.
The arrival of Europeans would eventually result in unspeakable tragedy for the Mi'kmaq, but for one brief historical interval, for little more than 100 years, an extraordinary new society began to emerge. The French respected the unspoiled quality of the forests inhabited by the Mi'kmaq, farming instead the fertile marshlands dotting the coastline, land which, in a sense, had already been cleared for them by Mother Nature. And And far from the oppressive influence of European grime, despotism, and poverty, these ordinary souls from France built upon the ties of friendship established by Jesse Flechier and shaped a new society in an unspoiled natural environment based upon mutual respect and friendship with the Aboriginal inhabitants. The Mi'kmaq helped the newcomers with wilderness survival. The French, in turn, provided the Mi'kmaq with welcome new contrivances, such as firearms and iron implements. The newcomers thrived in this bountiful land and hospitable environment. And as the years passed, they no longer saw themselves as French or European, but people of North America, calling their new land Acadia, which in Mi'kmaq means place of plenty. For more than a century after the arrival of Flechier, this egalitarian society flourished until European imperial wars spilled over into Mi'kmaq territory, and they found themselves at the crossroads of the exploitation of a continent. By the middle of the 19th century, more than half of all Mi'kmaq lands were being claimed by the British. The British grip on the Mi'kmaq tightened, persecution intensified, their settlements were overrun. The French fortress of Louisbourg became their refuge. The practice of the Mi'kmaq's beloved Catholic faith was banned by the British. Their priests were banished, and in addition to being a beacon of safety for the Mi'kmaq, Louisbourg was also one of the few places left where the devout Mi'kmaq could practice their faith and receive the sacraments which had become so vitally important to them.
Ego te baptizo in nomine Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
The French did not conquer the Mi'kmaq, they simply learned to live among them. The French grew to respect the customs and sophistication of the Mi'kmaq. The Mi'kmaq viewed the manners of the French with tolerant amusement, but the common bond of the Catholic faith cemented their friendship. A friendship which remained intact until the final fall of Louisbourg to the British in 1758. The importance of their historical friendship and alliance with the French still lingers in the collective memory of the Mi'kmaq. As Peter Joe, Frida, Catherine, and John Joe walk in the very footsteps of Jesse Flechier through the narrow streets of the old walled city of Langres. But even stronger in this powerful memory is the treaty which Flechier solemnized with their ancestors. To this very day, Mi'kmaq point with pride to the fact that they are the only nation on earth to have signed such a treaty with the Vatican. a treaty known today as the Concordat, an agreement which allows their sacred symbols to share space on the altar with the bread and wine of the Eucharist. And so, as the Mi'kmaq songs are being sung at this Mass in Langres, as the burning incense of the sweetgrass, cedar, and sage is being wafted aloft by an eagle feather, the work of Jesse Flechet and Grand Chief Membertou has come full circle, and the Mi'kmaq celebrants and people of Langres share a common element of each other's heritage.
Let us quiet ourselves and feel the presence of the Great Spirit. O Great Spirit, we pay homage to you in the south. We greet you. We thank you for all those people and things that warm our heart. We thank you for Father Flechet, who came across the ocean to work with our people. O Great Spirit, we pay homage to you in the East. We greet you. Come to us with the power of the rising sun. We thank you for this path of creation and creativity.
When the British came, they took their possession of Acadian and Mi'kmaq lands very seriously. They saw themselves as the new owners and were determined to take complete control, a determination which was frustrated at every turn by the Mi'kmaq. The blazing uniforms and clumsy old-world military ways of the English were no match for the hit-and-run guerrilla tactics of the Mi'kmaq. The Mi'kmaq made life miserable for Governor Edward Cornwallis. Mi'kmaq humiliation of the English military and the initial harassment of English settlements made English colonization impossible. He lashed out with a bounty at 10 guinea price on the head of every Mi'kmaq man, woman, and child. And the fate of the Acadians, the friends and allies of the Mi'kmaq, was worse. In 1755, Governor Charles Lawrence signed an edict banishing all Acadians from their lands. Acadians were rounded up, hunted down, and forced into exile, in yet another of the most abhorrent acts inflicted upon a cultural group in the history of humanity. Homes and communities were burned to the ground, crops were destroyed, livestock was seized. Families became separated in the horror of the mass exodus. Acadians were packed off into ships and sent to parts unknown. Countless lives were lost to disease in the holds of overcrowded prison ships, and as ships were lost at sea. Acadian culture was almost extinguished except for one vital detail, the audacious and timely rescue of numerous Acadians by the Mi'kmaq.
Fait que quand ça vient à ça, on pourrait peut-être survivre l'hiver avec des provisions. Puis,
and throughout the dense forest wilderness, Acadians were fed, clothed, and sheltered in the wigwams of the Mi'kmaq, safe from the clutches of the British soldiers.
Quand ça vient à ça, c'est important d'avoir assez. Parce que si nous en manque, là,
The Mi'kmaq had assured the survival of the Acadian culture in North America. Mi'kmaq resistance against the English had become complete.
The Mi'kmaq were the greatest in terms of warfare, guerrilla warfare, in this area, in these eastern coastal regions of Canada and the United States. So much that in 1776, George Washington recognized that. And he knew that if he got on the good side of the Mi'kmaq people, then he's protected not only from the English, but also from other tribes. That he would have the strongest camp on his side. And he initiated a treaty with the Grand Council in 1776. And therefore they signed what was commonly known today as the Watertown Treaty, just mere 14 days after their own Declaration of Independence. And George Washington wasn't a dumb guy. We entered the international scene as diplomats and as politicians. And that doesn't sit well with Canada. I mean, after all, we're not supposed to be that smart. The Mi'kmaq people were greatest in numbers on the eastern coast of Canada. We were one of the largest tribes in comparison to Malisets, to the Abenaki, to the Wadi, to the Mohegans, the Mashpis, and all of the tribes going down to Louisiana. The Mi'kmaq people were the greatest in number. So they controlled from Newfoundland all along the Gaspé coast, the coast of New Brunswick, down the Fundy area, all the way down to Louisiana. Well, the British saw that there something has to be done to these Indians. We're not only people of great strength and great mental wealth, but we're also now international. And so they passed out blankets infested with smallpox. And as a result, the population of the Mi'kmaq dwindled down to 1,700, from figures up to 80,000, 90,000, and they dropped down to 1,700. And practically the whole nation was wiped out. You could almost say it was almost wiped out. Thousands and thousands and thousands died of smallpox.
bounties on their heads, blankets of death, and all the king's horses and all the king's men were not enough to defeat the Mi'kmaq. The British were forced to sign a series of treaties. In a gesture of magnanimous compromise, the Mi'kmaq agreed to allow English settlements in their midst, in exchange for a British acceptance of their unconditional rights to traditional lands, waters, and hunting areas. Mi'kmaq trust in their fellow human beings led to their undoing. They were forced into more and more remote areas by encroaching British settlements, until there was no place left to go. Devastation of their hunting grounds meant starvation, disease, and still more death for the Mi'kmaq. In their weakened state, they became powerless against the ever-increasing tide of European pioneers taking over their territory in a flagrant violation of their treaties. The Mi'kmaq were forced onto reserves, onto tiny portions of land which could not possibly provide them with the necessities of life. And because of racial discrimination, they were unable to obtain employment. Ultimately, the Mi'kmaq relied upon their indomitable spirit and their artistry for survival. Using only the resources they found in nature, they manufactured axe and pick handles, essential to 18th century and 19th century agriculture and to the burgeoning coal mining industry in the region. And they made basketry of all kinds, baskets for harvesting potatoes, gathering eggs, taking goods to market, baskets serving all manner of agricultural and domestic uses, all produced with great skill and hard physical labor. Against almost impossible odds, the Mi'kmaq carved an economic niche for themselves in a racist and inhospitable environment. The more ornamental examples of their handiwork are now prized in art collections throughout the world. Mi'kmaq tenacity knew no bounds, a tenacity which became a source of consternation for the Canadian government, inheritors of governmental responsibility for the Mi'kmaq from the British. The Mi'kmaq had survived an almost endless series of horrors which were meant for their extinction, and certainly would have meant the extermination of a less determined people. With the dawn of the 20th century, and lasting for over 60 years, the Canadian government contracted with the Anglican, United, and Catholic churches to put in place a scheme which was intended to permanently put an end to distinctive Aboriginal cultures across the country. Children as young as 5 years old were taken from their parents, by force if necessary, and sent to residential schools. The schools were established under the guise of providing standardized education for Native children. But in reality, bullying, intimidation, brutality, and forced labor were employed to erase every last vestige of Aboriginal thinking and behavior from the lives of the school inmates, to erase most particularly the very heart and soul of Aboriginal societies, the native languages of the children.
I, for one, did not lose my language when I went there, because I'm such a stubborn person. No matter what was done to me to make me forget it, as long as I could think it, then I knew nobody could touch me. You know, and I remember an incident where someone told on me that I was speaking my language, and I got an awful beating for it. And while I was getting the beating, I was still thinking it, and I was so elated at the idea that I discovered. It was like discovering something totally new, because I was still thinking. Here I was getting all these bangs to the head and shakes to the head and slaps in the face, and you know, but I was still thinking in my own language, and I didn't feel any of the blows. I was so elated that, you know, and I was belligerent enough to say, beat me all you want, but you can't keep me from thinking. But unfortunately, a lot of our people didn't have the strength, didn't have the emotional strength, or didn't have the psychological strength. They were pretty well beaten down. Like, I used to get up early. I was in grade 4 when I started getting up early, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd go to the kitchen, get the things ready for breakfast, start making porridge or whatever, slicing the bread on a bread cutter, or start cooking. Oh yes, everybody had a duty to do. Everybody had a duty to do. The making up the beds and cleaning rooms and cleaning the chapel and cleaning the floors and cleaning the refectory and the dormitories, the sisters' quarters and the priest's quarters or whoever. Well, the washerwomen's and the dishwashers and the floor sweepers and the floor washers and the dusters, you know, and there was 4 floors to the building, and every floor had to be done before you went to school. That's all there was to it. It had to be done. The place was always spotless. There used to be a nun going around with a finger going like this, checking everything. It was the same sister that had a long fingernail. God, she had a long fingernail. She'd poke you. She'd poke you with it. And then you worked in the laundry. Every time I think of that laundry, I think of that little girl whose head got stuck in the washer. Well, they had the barn boys. They got up pretty early. They had all the chores down the barn, milking cows and whatever.
And there were furnace boys.
Oh yes, there was furnace boys. I know, because I used to have to go and feed them. They weren't allowed out. When they were in the furnace room, they stayed there. I remember I had to go down there a couple of times, and it was so hot in that place. My God, it was like it being in the oven. You know, it was fed by coal, the furnace. A lot of things went on in there that Like you say, people won't believe or that they're exaggerated, you know, but they happened. They happened. I know what I witnessed, and I know a lot are still alive that witnessed what I witnessed, you know. Well, there was sexual abuse, you know. I know I broke one up in the little girls' dormitory when I was older, when I was in grade 8. And I remember that. Then it happened to me, so there, now you got it.
How old?
I was in the 7th grade, I think. 7th grade, yeah.
Priest?
Yeah. There was nobody else allowed in there but priests. Anyway, the next morning, I remember going to church, made to go to church, and then the same wanted to give me communion. I wouldn't take it. How can somebody do that and then give you communion the next day in the name of God, you know? I wouldn't take communion. Of course, I got a strapping for that, but I wouldn't take it. I don't want to have anybody ever again intimidate me into believing that I'm worth less than what I am. And I don't ever want to see anyone else intimidate anyone else into thinking they're any less than who they are. I totally believe your existence on earth has been approved by the Creator himself. And no one should take it upon themselves to think less of you or for you to think less of anybody else.
I believe I remember reading somewhere a definition of Mi'kmaq people were a peaceful woodland tribe. That would not truly give you the right idea of what the Mi'kmaq were. From the late 1600s, right up to the end of the mid to late 1700s, in a span of roughly 1 century, we went to war with the largest empire in the world, the British Empire. Even when we were down to our smallest population level, we were still fighting the largest empire in the world and doing a damn good job at it.
Mi'kmaq dignity is indestructible. Mi'kmaq strength, defiance, and tenacity is boundless. They have endured centuries of torment meant for their extinction, and they have survived. They were never defeated. All of their treaties with the British were made from a position of power, signed in the interests of peace and friendship, and a willingness to share their lands with the newcomers. The British used the treaties as instruments for their greed.
When I was growing up, my father would read me these treaties, especially the 1724-25, you know, 1726, 27, 28, 49, 52, 61, all the way up to 74, I think 1792 was the last one made, but nobody ever recorded that. But he would read these things to me at night instead of reading me all these nursery rhymes. And for about 9 years, I can only remember hearing first part of the treaty right up until number 4, because I would fall asleep. The sacredness of those treaties are within us, signed by what's in the heart, and that's why they're so sacred. So because of that, we believed and we we abided by the sacredness of those treaties, more so than the Crown and even the Holy See. You know, we never ever broke the treaties. The treaties that we signed with the Pope, the Holy See, we never broke. The treaties that we signed with government, you know, we never broke. It was they that broke them. You know, we've kept our promises. You know, we didn't come out and kill people. You know, we didn't come out and tell farmers or whomever, you can't put a fence around that. That's our land. We let them live. We welcomed them, but not only that, we also helped them during the first years. I want Canada. You know, if we didn't want Canada, if we could have just as easily, you know, eradicated all of the boats that came here along with people in it.
Treaty Day is the name given to an annual series of meetings between the Mi'kmaq and municipal, provincial, and federal governments to honor the treaties the Mi'kmaq have signed over the years. Treaties have always been living documents for the Mi'kmaq, never out of date, and they take pride in abiding by their terms to the very letter, showing their goodwill by fighting to defend the United States in the Civil War, for example, and the British Crown in the First and Second World Wars.
We never fitted into the system. Our services were hired for us to go to war, but once the war was over, they wouldn't even allow us into their stupid taverns to drink with them. But, you know, but we can save their lives in the trenches. But that's the system.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you for coming, ladies. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you kindly. Really appreciate that. Thank you kindly, sir. And get in and get a sandwich and a cookie. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you kindly.
When I read these sacred texts, I always wonder what it was like during those negotiations. I wonder what was going through the minds of our forefathers. Were they thinking about the impact of what they were doing on the people? Were they thinking about the future of the generations to come? Were they contemplating the strength the documents would give their children? I can only think that the answer to all those questions is yes. They did not, however, prepare us for the event that occurred this past year. Over the past year, some people have taken it upon themselves not to uphold our understandings of peace and friendship. It saddens me to see that the use of violence and the machines of war to prevent our people from exercising their rights. I feel sad when the television, newspapers, radio stations are reporting that my people are undertaking so-called illegal fishing activity. If it is illegal, then, ladies and gentlemen, I am a guilty person. I ask that you arrest me now. The problem, however, is that I am only one person. You would have to arrest all Mi'kmaq people in this country, because once I am locked up, others would take my place in exercising our rights to the waters and to the land.
We make up less than 1% of the fishery effort in this area. They fish 225,000 traps, compared to us when we were fishing just under 1,000. On top of that, roughly 50%, we're talking roughly 100,000 more traps of poachers. And this is one of the DFO's own estimates. If the DFO would just sit down and apply the same aggressiveness to non-native poachers that they do to native people, then you could definitely make room, by far a lot more room, for native fishermen into this area. They said they do not even want one native trap in the water. Think about that. One native trap in the water. You could look at it in two ways. You could look at the number one, or you could look at the word native. You know, so, and you think about it. To them, every lobster we catch is one lobster less they have. So we're talking about greed here. They could have 99.999% of the resource, and they'll still scream and holler about not having that 0.0001%. What they fail to realize, though, is this resource does not belong to them. Absolutely does not belong to them. It belongs to the Mi'kmaq people. And for them to be here, it's nothing more than a privilege.
It was not so many years ago that the practice of the most innocent of Mi'kmaq cultural traditions was banned by the authorities. An enjoyment of the powwow like this would have meant a police raid, arrest, and fines for the participants. Raids based on laws which, like the 10-guinea bounty on every Mi'kmaq man, woman, and child, still have not been repealed and still exist somewhere in the books. Powwows are held all summer long. They are happy times of meeting old friends, feasting, selling crafts, and enjoying the elemental rhythm of the drums and the social and physical pleasures of the dance, which is also a form of deep prayer and meditation. Continuity of tradition, the young men tend the sacred fire, a fire which must remain lit for the duration of the powwow, a link to the many generations of Mi'kmaq going back thousands of years before them. Generations of ancestors whose spirits are particularly felt here at Kejimkujik National Park. Honor song is being sung for these ancestors, spirits viewed with deep respect and affection by the Mi'kmaq, spirits whose presence is a continuing reality in their day-to-day lives. The ancestors of the Mi'kmaq have left records of their existence from centuries past on the rocks surrounding Lake Kejimkujik. They have left records carved in stone in the form of petroglyphs.
So on this land there's petroglyphs out over here. Their petroglyphs are markings left here by our First Nation people. They are written in stone. The strength of the petroglyphs can affect all creation here on earth. They are that strong. They can affect the water, the non-Aboriginal people, the unborn, the plant life, the sound, the stars, the wind, the fire, the spirits of the fire. It includes them all. This is how strong they are. There's no limit to it, you know. I can read two of them. I can read two of the petroglyphs, and these two markings that I can read here of petroglyphs would make more than 2 books if they was complete, because the meaning of those petroglyphs means so much. But when I say I can read 2 of them, that's about all the strength I have. I don't want to know what they all mean, because I couldn't stand it. They're that powerful. The petroglyph has shown the whale, and the petroglyph said that he would be coming. So here a few years ago, the whale has been coming up on the shore, and he has been beaching himself to try to tell man, leave us alone, stop raping our oceans, stop destroying our world under the ocean. So he has given his life then, you know. But lo and behold, man doesn't recognize this. You know, he keeps overfishing our waters, and the spirit of the whale is very sad. So the whale has come up, and man has torn him out. You know, the water is the lubricant of our earth. You know, it's a lubricant of all plant life, and it's something that will turn on us if we don't start to recognize what the petroglyph is saying. So with this today, we buy water. We can't drink our water no more, and it only took 500 years to do this, and we have saved our land for tens of thousands of years. Whale is saying this. Whale is saying this. This is a story that whale is saying. It's said on the petroglyph. What the whale is saying is so true.
And this is what my father used to teach me when I was about 7 and 8. And this birch bark we folded, then you got to bite it with your tooth. This is how we do it, see? After you fold it, like this, then bite the edges. You can hear my teeth? Yeah. They're false teeth. But your teeth, we're not going to hear your teeth. And I couldn't bite as good as when I was 7 years old, because all my teeth were good. And then you could see the designs.
Margaret Johnson is teaching these school children the ancient Mi'kmaq technique of birch bark biting, a method of creating designs for a variety of decorative purposes. But there's more to this light-hearted passing on of traditions than meets the eye.
This one is good. Can you see it? Yes, go.
Margaret Johnson's generation and the children's generation shared the distinction of having been spared the devastation of the residential school system. And the joy in the sharing of traditions is natural and evident. But there's still a hurt at the heart of the Mi'kmaq people, felt so deeply for so many of those who were deprived of moments like this because of the residential school system, especially considering the source of the hurt, an institution which had been so deeply loved and trusted by the Mi'kmaq. and as the pilgrimage of John Joe, Catherine, Peter Joe, and Frida comes to a conclusion in Rome, it is a pilgrimage of devotion.
Almighty God, thank you.
But for John Joe Sark, ambassador to the Vatican for the Mi'kmaq Grand Council, it is also a part of his lifelong mission. A mission to convince the Pope and the Catholic Church about the importance of their role in healing his people. Healing his people by making amends for wounds etched on their psyche from the Catholic-run residential school system. For John Joe knows in his heart that healing cannot take place until the Church finally acknowledges its wrong and makes amends. And in so doing, souls will be set free, and the Vatican will finally honor the terms of the treaty it made with the Mi'kmaq and Jesse Fletcher 4 centuries ago.
People will never leave. I don't think there will ever be a product that would be made that would actually take us away from this area. I mean, we have had people who worked in Boston all their lives in the States. They have their pension, and what do? They come back to die gracefully. You will not understand until you have been a Mi'kmaq and you have been with a person who is on their deathbed. You know, and when our people are going to the next world, we want to make sure that they're sent off with the best there is. I remember an old man who was dying. Everybody was in the room praying, and all of a sudden he opened his eyes. He says, "Am I dead yet?" I don't. "Yes, sir. I'm the devil." So anyway, he just laughed, and within 3 minutes, he just closed his eyes and went. You know, was satisfied with the devil he met.